I know buying a house can be one of the most overwhelming things that you're ever going to do in your lifetime. I actually had a client who was a pediatric surgeon tell me that buying a house was the most stressful thing he's ever done. Like, this guy literally does surgery on newborns and told me this is more stressful than that. And the reason being is because he had done hundreds of thousands of surgeries and had only bought 2 houses in his lifetime. So if you have that fear and that anxiety and that knot in your stomach about buying a home, then I'm going to give you some tips today to help give you some clarity on that process so that you feel empowered, you feel educated, you feel ready to pull the trigger, or at least have a plan and a way to get your family and yourself into that home. But before we get started, I'm going to ask that if you like what you hear today, be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow, be sure to check me out on all my other socials at the Joe Soto. I'm all over the place. We want to educate people, we want to help them and guide them through this crazy process of buying a home. The first thing we should talk about is the market. How's 2024 going to be different than 2023? Well, 2023, in all honesty, was unprecedented. I've been in this business 20 years. We've never saw rates go from 3% to 8% in a flash. And they shot up. I mean, literally every day that I opened my computer, it seemed like rates were going up. What was crazy through that is that property values continued to increase, right? So if you talk to your parents and your grandparents and family members, they're going to say, well, interest rates go up, property values go down. And that was true in every other market but 2023. That's what made it so unique, because 95% of areas in the United States saw values increase, mostly because inventory was so low. So when we had the crash in 07, 08, there was 1 million homes for sale. I mean, probably more than 1 million. In this market, so many people are hunkered down with their 2 and 3% interest rates that literally it's affecting the divorce market. I have a client who's a divorce attorney, and she literally said that her business was down last year because people couldn't afford to get divorced. They stayed married because they didn't want to give up their 3% interest rate, right? That's going to change as rates come down. That's what we saw, was people hunkered down. So demand was still high, even as rates went from 6 to 7 to 8%. I like to use this analogy, right? Let's say at 6%, maybe there was 10 buyers in the market, right? Or 10 offers on a house. And then the rates went to 7%, and now you had 8 potential offers on a house. And then they went to 8%, and now you had 6 or maybe 5 offers on a house. But the difference is it wasn't 0. In order for values to go down, like grandma and grandpa told you, we would have had to see not only less homes or less offers, 0 offers, we would have essentially had to see 10 new listings on the market. That didn't happen. And that's why we saw rates go up and values still go up. Now, as we roll into this year, we're anticipating interest rates come down this year, right? So as interest rates come down, now you're going to go from 5 offers to 6 to 8 to 10, 15 to 20. And that's where the competition is going to start. That's where it's going to be crazy unless interest rates would have dropped so low that people would be willing to sacrifice their 3% to get into a new home. I don't think that's going to happen in 2024. But the key to interest rates coming into 2024 is going to be inflation. So you don't have to worry about what the Fed's doing or anything like that. Pay attention to inflation, because as inflation comes down, interest rates are going to come down. And really what you want to do as a buyer is you want to try to nab it before interest rates really drop, because once they really drop, the competition is going to be crazy. You want to get in before everybody else gets in. Meaning you want to get to the market before the news hits the streets and then everybody else gets off the couch. So being proactive instead of reactive is going to be your key to buying a home in 2024. The next big tip I can give you is to be prepared, right? Cash is king, but if you're like me, you don't have a rich uncle, or you're not just writing a check for whatever house you can buy, like you need a loan. You got to get financing. You have to make sure everything's in place. And so the biggest thing that you can do is have an offer that can compete with cash, meaning you're doing a full pre-approval. I just had a client walk into Wells Fargo, leave with the pre-approval letter in about 30 minutes. They left, they found a house, they made an offer. Loved the house, showed it to the whole family, only to find out that when they brought their documents to Wells Fargo that they didn't qualify. They couldn't buy that house anymore. So the more legwork you do up front on your pre-approval, as far as having your credit pulled, getting all of your income and asset documentation, everything to the lender so that they can make a real decision. You can't push button get mortgage. That's not reality, right? It takes paperwork and time to get a house. So you want to make sure that your lender has everything. And the most important thing that you can do is shorten those contingencies, being able to lower your loan, appraisal, inspection contingencies. Sometimes people are waiving them in some instances. You want to lower them as much as possible to make your offer compete with cash. Because when you're going against a cash offer, they only have one contingency, and that's an inspection. When you're coming in with a loan, you have an inspection, you have a loan, and an appraisal. So the faster that the lender can do those two things, if they can get all your documentation and remove that loan contingency, and they can order that appraisal and remove it in 5 to 7 days, that's going to help close that gap to help you compete with cash and really beat out all of those other offers that you're going to run into, because that's what's happening nowadays. The number one thing I'm hearing from people right now is, I am waiting for the rates to drop, Joe. I want to get in when the rates are low. And guess what? So does everybody else. And like that analogy I made, right? You're going to have more competition ultimately. But here's a little trick that most people don't know, where they can get tomorrow's rate today, and it's called a 1-year buy down. So it's a temporary buy down in which if the rate is 6.5%, let's just say today, for the first 12 months, you would get a 5.5% interest rate. That could save you $200, $300, $400, $500 a month. For the first year, 12 months, you're gonna have that lower rate. So as we roll through 2024 and you see the Fed lowering the funds rate and you see inflation go down, you're already gonna have a 5.5 interest rate. You could even get it at 4.5 and 3.5, but that's another program. But you're gonna have that rate, interest rates will come down. People are gonna fight to get into a house. You're already gonna be sitting nice and comfy in your home. And then when the fixed rate drops or the long-term rate drops, you can go ahead and refinance that mortgage. Now, don't be fooled. It's not an adjustable loan, right? For the first 12 months, it's 1% lower than the current market rate. After 12 months, it would go to current market rate. So like I said, 6.5 today. For the first year, you'd have 5.5. And then for the rest of the lifetime of the loan, if you didn't refinance, if rates didn't drop, then you would have a 6.5. But this is a great way to hedge your bet and get into the house now before all of the craziness. And as we talk about refinancing, I think a big misconception that people have is that a refinance costs $50,000, 10, 20, like whatever it is. They think it costs as much to refinance a house as it costs to buy a house, and that's not true. Typically, when you refinance, we will typically waive the lender fees, processing and underwriting fees, gone. All you're really gonna have to pay is title and escrow fees, attorney fees if you're in an attorney state, but that's minimal, right? That could be, depending on the size of the loan, $2,000 or $3,000 at the max. So if you can save a couple of $100 and pay $2,000 or $3,000 up front, it's worth it. And even better than that, sometimes when you do refinance, that cost can just be rolled into the loan, so you don't pay anything out of pocket. It literally is a no-brainer. And if you look back at your parents and grandparents who have houses, who have told you, my first house, I got a 16%. Well, grandpa, how long did you keep that 16%? Because the answer is, the first chance they could refinance it, they did. Whether they had a 16 or 7 or 8 or 9, they refinanced, and you're gonna do the same thing. I am 100% sure of it. So that's all I got for today. As I mentioned, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like it, make sure you put some comments if you have some feedback for me. I am always wanting to share and help people through this journey because it's overwhelming, it's stressful, it's scary. You know, I tell people all the time, you're not gonna be calm until you have keys in your hand, right? Like, that's just the facts, and we're here to help guide you through that process. So I hope this helped you along your homeownership journey.